Hello and welcome. This is rooflemonger. And my friends, in today's video, I'd like to talk about the Guilty Gear Strive DLC. So as you probably well know, Season 2 for Guilty Gear Strive is around the corner sometime in the future, and all the Season 1 DLC characters are now out and available. We have 5 total DLC characters, and they're all interesting in their own ways, and I figured, well, for today, why don't we rate them? So in rating these characters, I want to talk about what the character is, what they set out to accomplish, if I think they did it well or not. Not so much about like raw tier power, because that's very subject to change. Like right now, pure power-wise, yeah, I would say Happy Chaos is the strongest of all the DLC characters, and Goldlewis is probably the weakest, right? This is very subject to change. I can change in a patch. The Season 2 patch, who knows? It could be flipped around. Happy Chaos becomes weak, and Goldlewis becomes the god of the game. Who knows? So that's not going to factor in how I rate these characters. Their originality, how well they play, how well they just kind of live and breathe inside the game as it stands. These are the kind of things I'm looking forward to in rating these characters. So we'll rate them on a basis out of 5, and just so you know, on this channel, as is proud tradition, we do not rate on the star basis, we do rate on the fat monkey basis. So the more fat monkeys a character gets, well, in my opinion, the better they are overall. We'll review these characters based on the order of their release, so we will start with Goldlewis. So first off here, let's talk Goldlewis. So Goldlewis is an all-new character. He never existed before Guilty Gear Strive, although the lore is he is officially related to the Burger Sheriff in one of the stages in Guilty Gear Xrd. But yeah, so all-new character, and I gotta say, design-wise, he's fantastic. Now, there is a trend in fighting games. When you have a bigger character, they're played off completely for laughs, right? And not to say there's not a comedic element to Goldlewis, because there absolutely is, right? Like, he's got a friggin' alien, an Area 51 alien, in a coffin, right? But he definitely has a serious streak to him. Like, just even his forward walk, right? That's menacing. Like, you can see this coffin scraping off the ground, the serious pose. Like, when he needs to be, he's kind of a scary-looking character. So he's not just the LOL, he's fat archetype that exists in most fighters. Very well dressed, great attitude. Visually, I love everything about him. He's great. The whole motif, he's like an American general. He plays up a lot of the Area 51 stuff, the iconography. Once again, he has the alien. When you win around with him, the alien abducts the enemy, which is fantastic. And the fact that he denies it's an alien at all and just says it's like a cryptid, like a chupacabra, and not a full-blown alien. Just everything about the character is fantastic, from like an appearance level, a personality level, everything. Now, gameplay-wise, now he does have a unique meter mechanic, right? This is his security meter, which buffs certain moves of his, like the big minigun. As far as like depth goes, it's basically like baby's first mechanic. It's literally just a bar that builds. That's it. That's all, right? Once you do a move, it goes back to 0. It'll build to level 2 at a decent pace. Level 2 moves are obviously not as good as level 3 moves. And to build level 3, you gotta wait a hot minute, right? So it's not too complex. Generally, you want the level 3. It's always the best version of the move, right? Certain aspects of the character have been buffed over time, too. So, like, the level 3 minigun is much more devastating now than it was at launch, because it's much faster and you get a lot more options with it. But yeah, overall, it's a pretty basic mechanic. Now, what's not a basic mechanic and his signature move is the Behemoth Typhoon, right? So when Goldlewis was announced, this was memed to death in every possible which way, right? He has the Behemoth Typhoon, which is technically one move, right? It's a direction and heavy slash. But the thing is, it has 8 permutations, right? It uses the full circle, all the motions here of the traditional gate of a fighting game, right? And it's a 180 in every possible direction. So like half circle forward, half circle back, you know, down, back to up, down to forward up to forward to down, this, that, and the other. And all of them produce different moves, and they're all very useful in their own ways. Like that one causes a wall bounce. This one causes a small launch, and more importantly, is very plus on block. Plus frames are fairly rare in this game. But then you got stuff like this guy, which is incredibly plus on block, and is also an overhead, but it's a decent amount slower, and he can be hit out of it. You got stuff like this guy here, which is like, you know, good for combos, causes a hard knockdown, pokes. things that can switch sides. There's a lot of utility in this move, right? The thing is, since nothing like this has really existed before in a fighting game, it's very confusing to a lot of people. Like, we've done videos in the past talking about like how many people play how many characters, and Goldlewis every single time is the least popular character in the game because this mechanic is a little much for people. Not the least of which is almost all the ones ending with like an up in direction some way somehow. Like, they're hard to do on the ground. Like, you will wind up jumping a lot of time. Now there are tricks, like if you hold for flawless block, you can't jump on your up back frames. This means basically you have a slightly easier time to do anything ending with an up, since you can't jump on the up frame while you're holding your flawless defense. So that stuff gets a little bit easier, right? But yeah, for the most part, it scares people off. It's very interesting, it's very unique, and I'm glad they did it, but it's definitely not for everyone. And of course, the other thing is, and maybe this will be addressed in future patches or season 2 or whatever, his title is the Secretary of Absolute Defense, and Goldlewis is known for having some of the weakest defense in the game. He's got a lot of cool toys, he's got the Behemoth Typhoon to work with, right? But defense is not the strong point, so that is a bit misleading. So now, rating-wise, perhaps there's a bit of personal bias here, but whatever, it's my video, right? So, but looks-wise, incredibly unique. Play-wise, there's nothing like them, right? Guilty Gear is a franchise with a lot of unique characters, and he's one of the most unique in this game, that's for sure. Everything about him, gameplay, aesthetics, you know, just the general character vibes, it's all through the roof. Even if tier-wise, currently, right now, he's one of the weakest characters in the game. I'm not holding that against him for now. That can be fixed in the future, right? So rating-wise, he gets 5 out of 5 from me. Now, our second released DLC character was Jacko. So Jacko is a pre-existing character. She was in Guilty Gear Xrd. And also, while I don't hold this against developers because this is how things gotta be, right? A fair bit of her animations are like reused animations, tweaked a little bit. Once again, it saves a lot of money when you do it this way, so I don't hold it against them. But, you know, she's not wildly 100% unique and original, like, say, Goldlewis is. So she's always been the minion character, right? She can put minions on the screen, bounce them around. One of the biggest changes, though, is from her original appearance in Guilty Gear Xrd. She was more like, and I hate to use this term, I guess, but like the MOBA character. She would put minions on the screen, yes, but they were basically in like little houses and they came in their own little lanes, right? Specifically top lane, mid lane, and bottom lane, just like a MOBA. So that's always how that made sense to me, right? In this version of the game is a lot more simplistic, for sure, right? You can put your minions wherever you want to put them, but they're put directly onto the screen, and there's no different variants of them versus like the flying minion, the spear minion, that kind of stuff in Guilty Gear Xrd. Another thing, just like Goldlewis, where people had difficulty with the Behemoth Typhoon, is she's a fair bit more complex than a lot of the cast, right? Compared to like Soul, where you just, you know, mash forward slash and things will figure itself out eventually, right? The fact that you have to manage the minions, like if you can't manage the minions, you can't play this character, right? And you have to kind of have an extra layer of sense to be able to play, like learn how to deal with the usual milieu of fighting game stuff, which is already hard enough as it is, right? And then, okay, where are my guys relative to me on the screen? How am I going to use them? Am I going to bounce them into each other? Am I going to force them to do, you know, recall or force them to attack? This, that, and the other. She's a lot harder than just about almost anyone else. Jacko, unlike a lot of other characters, is not a pick up and play character. Now, that's not necessarily a full-on fault, but it also means, just like Goldlewis and just like Happy Cows, which we'll talk about in a bit, a lot of people will play them for like 5 minutes and just kind of nope out, bounce off. That's always the hard part of fighting games, I guess. The more complex you want to make a character, that means the less and less and less people will play that character. Still, that said, if you can put in the time, Jacko's game plan is very varied and interesting. Like, this is another character that nobody plays like. Like, you can go around a lot of other fighting games. There are other characters in various fighting games that will summon little buddies, you know, like say Gargos and Killer Instinct for an example, right? But the exact way she plays is very unique to her, and that's very valuable to have in a fighting game when your characters are not like anyone else, right? Like, there's a lot of characters where you're going to see this move, You know, that's just in the DNA of fighting games. But Jacko is very much her own thing. So that all said, I do think, even though her game plan is a complex one, the character herself and overall, compared to the other DLCs, is maybe a bit more bland. So I'm going to be rating her 2.5 fat monkeys out of 5. Now, coming off of Jacko, who's a very complex character, we have Happy Chaos, who's an even more complex character as far as I'm concerned, honestly. He's all about the gun mechanic. Now, this mechanic, like seeing like a reticle and stuff, like that's not necessarily never happened before. Like Elfelt in Guilty Gear Xrd had a rifle she could shoot, but not to the same degree like this. Because we have the reticle, we have the concentration meter, which is in the bottom left draining out because you can't shoot forever. We have the bullets. Happy Chaos cannot infinitely shoot. And he has 2 separate meters to gauge this, right? Either if you're out of bullets, well, then you can't shoot the gun so good, right? And if you're out of concentration, then you can't shoot at all either. So when it comes to originality, like, Happy Chaos, there is nothing like him. Nothing at all. So that is easy. That's off the charts. And a lot of the aspects of the character are satisfying. Not the least of which, in his current state of the current balance, Happy Chaos is generally considered to be very strong to straight up top tier. Mostly because once he starts going, it's very hard to get out. A big part of this is the heavy shot, which is incredible. Oh my God, it's so good to land. It feels very visceral, very satisfying. It's just a giant shot with this revolver that's as big as your arm, right? And if you get hit by it, well, you get launched up in the air, something fierce, right? Juggles in and of itself. It's a guard break. Like, it's so advantageous here. Like, I can have a Soul do stand kick, which is 3-frame move, right? It's basically the fastest attack in the game. And I can cancel into a shot, and I can still beat him. Like, to the point, really, I don't even have to beat him. I can keep him in such lockdown that he can't even hit a button, right? So a Happy Chaos player that's good at managing the ammo, managing concentration, you can do your Super 2 to rebuild your concentration. They can keep you in lockdown just about near forever, right? And it's incredibly difficult for a lot of characters to deal with that, right? It's very powerful, and when you're the one doing it, it feels great. Makes you feel like a god. When you're on the receiving end, not so much. It doesn't feel very fun at all, right? But them's the breaks. Not the least of which of these things is Happy Chaos's personality, right? This is not gameplay, but his personality is 10 out of 10. Like, I know some people are sticklers about English voices, but to me, the English voice actor is the character. So much more vibrant and interesting than the Japanese version. And if you haven't played the story mode or seen the story mode, I highly suggest it because Happy Chaos steals the show. Like, he's obviously the main antagonist, but he's just causing a lot of, well, chaos, right? A little on the nose, I suppose. And he's having a blast while doing it. So Happy Chaos is a true joy. I like everything about him. The only thing is, he's a very difficult character to play. Now that I am not going to hold against him. But the thing is, I feel like some of his difficulty is very inelegant. Once again, the fact that he has 2 mitigating factors on how his core mechanic works, right? Of just shooting guns and doing things, right? The fact that he has both bullets to worry about and a separate concentration gauge that both govern the same mechanic. It's 2 different mechanics to do one different thing. And I feel like that is very inelegant, and there could have been a better way to get around this and do this. Like, for myself, it's one of the reasons why I'll never put real time into the character, and why the vast majority of people don't really put much time in the character, because it's scary, it's hard, and it's annoying, right? Everything about this character is cool as hell, but I feel like the core system, while it obviously works in real-world practice, because, once again, at the time of this recording, he's a much higher than average tier character, right? I don't think it was done to the best of its ability, and it could have been done a little bit better. So that all said, I love this character. Other than that one little quibble, though, he's fantastic, and I rate him 4 fat monkeys out of 5. Now, Baiken. So Baiken is easily the most famous / infamous of all the DLC characters for Guilty Gear Strive. Like, not even close. Baiken has her own little personal fanboy army, I guess you could say. And until Baiken is added in every game she can be in Guilty Gear, they don't shut up about it, basically. And sure enough, when Baiken finally gets added to the game, as she obviously is here in Guilty Gear Strive, most of them go on to not buy the character or support the game, because that's not what they do. If you think I'm being a little unfair and uncharitable here, well, we go through this cycle a lot and I'm a little sick of it. So that's just how it's going to be. But that said, Baiken as a character. Baiken is one of the classic Guilty Gear characters. She has been in every game. She's going all the way back to the original Guilty Gear The Missing Link, where she was a secret boss. And in later revisions, later games, she would become a playable character. Now, starting Guilty Gear X2 and its later revisions and going on to Guilty Gear Xrd, although it changed a little bit, she's always had a very heavy focus on counterattacks. Now, I guess you could say one of the things that's unfortunate is the version of Baiken and Guilty Gear Strive, the counter-attack functions, they all got kind of minimized into one move, right? And, like, it's a pretty dang decent move as it stands. Like, that's like a lot of damage for a counter, right? But that's about it. So the multi-layers of counters and all the fun things they could do, like they could seal away your moves and this, that, and the other in the X2 series, or the varied outcomes of the parry system in Guilty Gear Xrd. It's just the one counter, that's it, right? Now, it's certainly not all doom and gloom. The reason for this change is a lot of Baiken fans, like there's two big reasons, right, why people like Baiken. Let's get real with it, right? When they get the game and they finally play, they don't want to play a defensive style of character. Simply put, in fighting games, offense is a lot more popular than defense. So Baiken has been shifted around in this version of the character to add some of that offense. And thus we have the rope mechanic. And rope mechanic is very unique. It tethers you to your opponent, right? And it like really tethers you to your opponent. Like you can't get away from each other while the rope is up. You can either apply as a special move or through a throw. And this is where a lot of Baiken's bread is buttered in this game. And it's very unique, and I think it's very fun. When the rope is attached, you get new mix-ups, you get new pressure, you get new combos, you get new basically everything, right? Because you guys are stuck together. You now control your opponent's movement. And to be able to do that in a fighting game is a pretty rare concept. It's certainly not impossible and never showed up, right? But it's rare that the enemy has to move in a certain way now, not just because like you're shooting fireballs and you're controlling like their avenues of approach. Like they strictly cannot move too far away from you, and that's really cool. Besides that, Baiken looks like classic Baiken, right? Very cool appearance, just kind of badass amputee samurai. Decided to bust out the GAT in this version of the game. She has a fireworks launcher. She's definitely no stranger to explosives, so we have that. Besides that, all sorts of, toys, the sword, the clubs, the bell, we got the claw. Like, she's got a lot to work with. So in the end, Baiken's Baiken. Everyone likes Baiken. The only thing I can say that's a real big negative, I guess, is this is not what I would consider the definitive version of the character. I think it's a fun and different version of the character, but when I think back to a lot of what my favorite things about Baiken are, this version of Baiken specifically is not it. For some people, though, it may be exactly what you're looking for, and if it is, more power to you. So that all said, I'll give Baiken 3.5 fat monkeys out of 5. And the last of our Season 1 DLC characters. So number 5 of 5 is Testament. Now, Testament is also a returning character, just like Jacko, just like Baiken. Although Testament is wildly different compared to how they used to play, right? Jacko is the same thing with the formula tweaked a little bit. Baiken kind of changed what the core gameplay loop was, more offense now than defense. But Testament is a new character. Still has, some of the same normals. They look a little similar, right? But a lot of the core gameplay is just as different could be. Before, Testament was the kind of character that basically plant traps all over the stage, right? And had an extreme ability to control the stage through that and various moves. Basically, none of those moves exist in this version of the character, and we have all new stuff. Like we have our little succubus pals. This is one of the most interesting things about the character. The succubus lets you teleport. It lets you guide projectiles towards it, and that projectile has its own state. And yeah, like there's just a lot of fun and interesting things going on here. Obviously enough, we also have an all new look for the character, which I think is a really classy look. I especially love the top hat. But the thing is, even though Testament no longer has like trap zoning, Testament still is all about screen control. Has the fireballs, the King Kong normals, forward heavy slash specifically is ridiculous. Controls an absolutely fantastic amount of the screen. So if you're looking for the kind of character that controls screen via buttons, as we say, just like, basic pokes, that kind of stuff, this is a great character for it. There's not too many characters like this in the game. Not necessarily strictly a defensive character, but also not a character that's just screaming and rushing forward to you like a gorilla, like so many characters in this game are, right? So even just play-wise, it's refreshing to have a different archetype to work with, someone that's not just screeching and smashing buttons like a lot of the characters in this game want to do. I know some people will mourn the loss of the old moveset, but just given the kind of game this is, I don't really think that moveset would work, for one. And I think the new moveset Inherited works out very well, very fun, very interesting. Like, even basic combos are very satisfying. Like, something like this is just satisfying on like a primal level. It just feels fun to do. So, new look, new moveset, kind of new everything. Like, Testament is a pre-existing character, but is a fully new character effectively. Also, within the context of the story, Testament has had a severe attitude adjustment. Testament was like the goth, broody, darkness, edgelord character in older games, and now they're just having fun, living life, and just exploring the world, having a grand old time. So it's a definite marked improvement in attitude. So honestly, I gotta say, there's no aspect of this character I don't like. Like, everything's well done. This is how you take an old character and remake them in a new game, right? If you don't want to adhere to a lot of the legacy stuff, I think Testament is a shining example of exactly that. They kind of threw away all the old legacy gameplay, did something exactly new, but yet it still feels like them, if that makes any sense. Maybe it doesn't, I don't know. But overall, yeah, Testament's just a complete joy. Great addition to the game. 5 fat monkeys out of 5. So that is my ratings of all the characters. So this is the 5 we have for season 1, and there is more on the horizon with season 2. Once again, balance-wise, tier-wise, I'm not really considering that a factor, because come season 2, everything's going to change. Who's top tier now might be bottom tier, who's bottom tier now might be top tier, and everything's going to get shuffled around, right? So that's as I stand. Overall, as you can tell if you watch the video, right? My overall ratings are generally very positive. I think every character is very well done, even if there is some odd quibbles here and there, right? Overall, they've done very well, and we got more DLC characters coming season 2. And if this is the overall level of quality we're getting in season 1, and now that, they're better at making the game, they know certain mistakes to not do anymore, certain trends to follow that will be good in the future, this speaks very well for how the characters are going to be in season 2, and it's going to be very exciting to see how they all turn out. That all said, my friends, that is the end of the video. So thank you very much for watching. Hope this video has found you well, and go out and play some Guilty Gear.